Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today I'm with not one, but two amazing guys. I'm with Q, of course, from Weweb as usual, and with Joel, who is branded Weweb and base row, so only really cool gear. And Joel is going to show us the project he built with Weweb and a bunch of other tools for the Weweb hackathon. So he'll show us how to mint NFTs using Weweb, basically. Well, no, using the interfaces on Weweb. The rest is more complex than that. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Really excited.
Nice. How are you doing,
Same.
Q?
Same, because I want to see Web3 stuff, so I'm quite excited.
Awesome. Yeah, just so you know, in the chat, feel free to say hi, by the way, and feel free to ask a bunch of questions during
Hey, Xavier and
the stream.
Lee Renald. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the stream.
Welcome. Joel has a developer background. He actually founded alfie.dev as well, which he used in his Weweb project, so he'll show us that as well. So as a developer, yeah, some of the things in Weweb in the project are code and are more technical, but I think that's pretty cool as well because it's part of the vision of Weweb as well it's a no-code tool. You can do everything without code, but you're never limited by if you need to add code, you can. So yeah, let's do this. Should I share your screen, Joel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Cool.
So following on from what Joyce said, a little bit of a disclaimer. So the reason I participated in the hackathon was to really see the limits of Weweb for when we receive quotes and things like that. And there really weren't any limits. So integrating external JavaScript libraries like Metamask and Socket.io can be quite tricky in the no-code space and just impossible with most tools. So yeah, it was great. And the disclaimer is really that what I'll be showing, there are some kind of workarounds to use these sorts of libraries inside of Weweb, but for 90% of the projects, it will not be as complex as this. So don't be put off if you're looking to use Weweb. Dive in. It's incredible. So here's the project.
By the way, we didn't tell him to say that.
Yeah.
It's
just so friendly.
Thanks.
So if first you wanna talk about the whole project, what it's doing, and then maybe we'll deep dive in the Weweb app and even the rest of the stack, because I mean most of the people here, especially I see people from No Code France, they're really interested in the whole stack. So it's not all about Weweb. If you wanna talk about your because you've got a product also, feel free.
Sure. That sounds like a plan. So this is the page. I'll scroll through it and show you what it does and how it works. So when you first come to the page, you'll see this slider, and this is just a native Weweb slider, and it's a collection. So this is actually loading all of the NFTs that have been minted and then displaying them. And to add some context,
some look really nice, actually. Every time I look at your project, I think the same thing, I might buy this one or this one.
Yeah,
looks cool.
I know. I wish because I haven't been involved in the Web3 space. That was another reason I chose to do this as an experiment. But looking at it a year or 2 years ago, could have launched a good project where people could generate their own. But that's kind of not the industry I'm in. But yeah. So it's got a collection, and these are all the ones that have been minted. And the idea is that you can log in with your MetaMask account, and then you can mint a blank NFT. And then once you've minted it, you can use DALL-E and the prompts to generate the artwork. So just to show you quickly, in base row, which is the database, you can see I've got style. So you have different styles like Keith Haring, Kids Crayon Art, Pablo Picasso, Banksy. And when you mint, you get a style. So then that just makes it a bit more unique as well and adds a bit of fun. And you get 5 tokens. So once you mint an NFT, you've got 5 times to generate. And if you run out, then you run out. So
what does that mean? Like you're stuck with the one that? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so it's like it's not a public, it's on a private chain. It's the
Yeah.
testnet. So it's not like a real project, but I just wanted to do something a bit different and maybe, I don't know, inspire a project or two.
Cool.
And so like the style that you use, sorry Joyce, they are like prompts you give to DALL-E, and then you get like, but do you have to pay for DALL-E? I don't remember.
Probably. I've just got my OpenAI account.
That's why you have to, like 5 tokens. Okay.
Well, yes, yeah. I think there is a minimal amount, and like as this is a free project on the testnet, I didn't want people to abuse just like free minting and like token generation, and like the idea was that I can like have a play with it, your team could have a play with it, and I could sleep easy without worrying about my bank. And so as we scroll, oh, sorry.
Just maybe before you go on, I wanted to ask, because I think it'll interest some people in the chat as well. What led you to choose base row?
So most no-code tools aren't open source, and I'm very much like pro like modular development. So like I don't mind the fact Weweb isn't open source. Like it uses Vue under the hood. I know it's like a well-developed tool. For the back end, we've got our own product, so like I'm happy with that. But with the database, like I don't want that lock-in. And under the hood, it uses Postgres. So it's a real database. You can host it on Heroku if you want. You can use their free instance, like on their hosted version, if you're non-technical and you just want to like just like creating an Airtable account and creating a base. And they've got good API. They're friendly people. They've just been funded. So yeah, just show some support to other creators.
Awesome.
Nice.
And as we scroll down, you can see like a how it works. So I'm not a designer, but you can see it looks all right.
Honestly, that's more than okay. Yeah, be proud of yourself.
Thanks to your components, really. Like, we'll get into some of the components later, like the drop downs and things like that. Like even this carousel, like having that as a collection is just saves so much time. Like you don't need to worry about libraries or GSAP or anything like that. And then at the bottom, this is like the form. So once you've logged in, you'll be able to access this. So let me log in now.
Xavier is saying you're with low design friends. And Xavier is
back-end people.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more back-end people in no code because it is predominantly like design, which is quite alien to me. So once you click login, you'll see, can you see the pop-up? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of explain what's happening under the hood before we like dive in. Or should I explain it now, or should we just do the demo and then explain it in Weweb?
No, I think you can explain maybe.
Okay.
If it's...
So in order to have like a Web3 login, you need to validate the person owns the address. So the primary way to do that is to sign a unique message, and the signing is handled by Metamask. So we use, in this example, Ethers.js, which is the closest thing to no code to interact with Web3, as it was a no code hackathon. I wanted to use the easiest thing for people who wanted to follow along. And basically, when you click login, a request is made to the backend, which creates gets a message, which I'll show you here. Mm-hmm. And it also generates a nonce, which is a number that should only be used once. And you can see that here. So if we take a look at base row and go to the users table.
Maybe you can just zoom a little on base row because it seems a little bit small.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be okay, I think.
Let me just refresh the page because I might have been logged out. There we go. So you can see only this user has got a nonce right now because it should only be used once. Whoops. So if we go back, so I've got my message, and then the way the signature is created, it's using your private key. You should never give your private key to anyone, not even your best friend, not your mum, not anyone. And MetaMask handles this. So Weweb isn't aware of the private key. Alfie isn't aware of the private key. Base row isn't. None of the tools apart from MetaMask. And then when you click sign, a Metamask like signs the message and has the signature. It's then sent off to the server, and when we get into Alfie, once we've done the Weweb side of things, we've got a step that allows you to verify a message. So that's kind of how that works, and then it issues a JWT token. Yes.
So that pop-up that's in the middle, that's from Weweb? Like the
Yes.
loader was all in Weweb, and obviously the pop-up on the right, that's a Metamask extension.
That's Metamask, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so you can create really like fluid UIs because based on what's happening on the server and what's happening in MetaMask, we're showing prompts inside of Weweb. And when we come to mint tokens in a second, you'll see that the prompts are like dynamic, they update, the loaders show. But for now, we've been logged in, so we can see it says you've successfully been logged in. And the key thing is where a JWT token, so that's a JSON web token, I don't want to get into it too much, is issued, it means that we don't have to sign a message every time we want to perform an action. So like you have that and then it lasts for 24 hours and then afterwards you have to sign another message.
For people that may not know, a JSON web token is basically like an API token, but with more information. Like you could have like several keys, several values, and it can refresh. So yeah, it can expire. And I think that's the go-to standard for security right now, like for the front ends.
Yeah, for user login. And there are different ways to store it. So like you can, I think the default in Weweb, I'm not sure, is it local storage or session storage? One of
I think for us it's local storage, but no, like when you do preserve on navigation, I think it's session storage. But I think we've got devs on the chat, so maybe for devs are like wants to answer this, because I think already is hanging here, so maybe she's got the answer.
Awesome. I'll keep an eye out in the chat.
It's either local or like session storage. Yeah.
And you can, like for example, with Alfie, you could issue cookies and then use them in Weweb, but that was kind of outside of the scope of what I wanted to do. So now I'm logged in. This section's been unlocked, and I can see all of the NFTs I've already minted. So you can see I've done quite a lot, and you can click the drop down.
Nice.
And because Weweb uses view under the hood, it's reactive. Like there is JavaScript, but I didn't like have to do when on change. Like do this and document.getElement by ID, update SRC, like all of that. So
like basically when we'll go to Weweb, imagine like your image is just bound to the value of the dropdown, and that's all. Okay.
So when we get into Weweb, that's when it gets really fun. So let's mint a new NFT. So we've got a blank one. So if I click mint, we can see the Weweb custom pop-up. You can make this look as pretty or as ugly as you want. And Weweb's even got loaders, which is like, you'll see in a minute, like the loaders are so cool. But we've got this pop-up that says awaiting confirmation. Please check and confirm the transaction. So here on the right, it's saying like there's, I think it's free, but we've got to pay the gas. So I'll click confirm. The modal has changed to processing transaction. Now, this may take a while, so you can check.
Yeah, it's validating it's validating the exchange. Yeah, okay.
It's posting it to the blockchain. So there we go. And then after it's posted, we need to know like what happened. So a webhook is fired. So we can see now we've got our new NFT, which is number 40.
Can I ask, like, how did you know to show the message only 5 seconds left? Because there's something being returned from...
So that bit is like, as it was a hackathon, there were some like hacks or shortcuts. So it's basically we're using Morales. If you could share that in the chat, that's like you can fire webhooks when an event happens on the blockchain. And 5 seconds was plenty of time, like for that instance. So it just, users like to see something change in the UI.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool. I didn't know about this tool actually. So like you can really like watch what's everything happening in the blockchain and react to this basically.
Yeah. So as we're on this topic here, so this is the let me do this so I can see you guys again. There we go. So this is at the endpoint. So I'm watching this contract. this is another Alfie endpoint that we want to call.
Okay, nice.
And you've got event Alfie, the chain. So Garoli is like the test Ethereum network, and contract interactions, the ABI. I don't want to get into this too much, but the main thing you want to see is ownership transferred and transfer. So when these two things happen on our contract, this hook is fired.
It's like webhook for the blockchain, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And if we take a look inside of base row and we go down, we can see, so I've pre-populated it with just 60 blank NFTs, but we can see number 40, which is the one we just minted, has got our address now. So what we can do, get you guys back up and go to here. Let's enter a prompt. So I'm terrible at typing, even though I'm a developer, so I'm going to copy and paste the example. And we've got 5 tokens. This is going to be in the style of,
Finally, I understand why developers love copy paste so much. It's actually, you just don't like typing.
Well, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not like some developers, like people I've worked with in the past, they're typing only, like shortcuts. I don't know. Like it's just, it's not.
You should try. I've been trying GitHub Copilot. I'm like, yeah, it's typing for me. I love it because I have the same issue. I'm always like really bad at typing stuff. So yeah.
I don't know. When I'm in the zone for coding, like when I'm in my IDE, it's a bit different. But especially on stream as well, like
yeah.
So this is actually your favorite, if I'm not wrong, Joyce, the Beatrix Potter ones. You liked those ones.
Yeah.
So we'll do an astronaut lounging in a tropical resort in space. So I'll click generate, and this is another Weweb default animation. So I just layered it on top of the image.
I didn't even know we had that. It looks great.
That's a loader, I think. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the loaders.
Loaders,
okay, awesome.
Hi, Ron. Hey. Oh, cool. Oh, I've just seen the comments. Wow, there's lots going on. So what happens here is, as we're using DALL-E, it like image generation isn't fast. Like it takes a while. So like using normal APIs isn't always best. And that's why I chose to use WebSockets, and also it let me test one of our new features. So when you click generate, what's actually happening is we're creating a socket IO connection, and then like broadcasts are sent back. So like when if I generate it again, if you take a look at the bottom again, these are native Weweb toast. I think they're toast or notifications alerts. If I click generate again, we can see notification artwork generation started, and then it should receive another one after DALL-E finishes saying artwork successfully generated. And there's a few more behind the scenes as well, and our tokens have been updated.
And so here, sorry, maybe you did talk about it, but like to know that the generation was done, you're using Socket.io or?
Yes. Yeah, so there's a couple of so like the 2 I just mentioned, but then there's some other ones like on completion. When we dive into Weweb, you'll see all of the events. And I'm looking at the time now. I've spent quite a while running through it. So that's the like 101 of what it does. So before I dive into Weweb, any questions? Anything?
Xavier said, "Wow." So
thank you, Xavier.
Yeah, feel free to ask any questions, by the way, and interrupt us. And yeah, but I think that's okay for now. You've been pretty clear.
Yeah, it was super clear.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So where should we start? Should we start with the maybe the login, or kind of like the structure first, so people can see how you can organize in Weweb, because that's like
maybe the structure, because that's a question we have a lot, and we're working on this also, like with the Future Academy, because you know that in Weweb you can have like many variables, many workflows, many things, and we love to see how people they are like structuring this. So, and yours is a good example, I think.
Well, my because this was one of my, like, not my first, but one of the first Weweb projects I did. I actually learned from your Clonable, the CRM one.
CRM, yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's incredible.
You're
Like,
using
that
my
just
CRM. Nice.
reverse engineered that, and it was like, wow. So if you're new to Weweb, I highly recommend going away and cloning that, because it will save you
Yeah.
so much time. You won't have to like refactor
And
down the line.
by the way, spoiler alert, in 2 weeks, Bravo Studio is actually, it's a no-code tool to do like mobile apps. They're actually doing the CRM template also in their tool, and we'll do a live with like Zano and Bravo Studio to present to you how we've done, like, and you can like use the same tools, the same backend for like several use cases. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh wow. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah, Bravo Studio is another one like in my sphere, because I know they do work with like Base Row as well, and you guys, and
Yeah.
kind of the modular philosophy is like shared. So let's take a look at the structure here. So page wise, there's just 2 pages. The injector page is, as the login uses Metamask, you can't run external JavaScript libraries inside of Weweb for security. Like, it's a good thing it's not a bug. So like, I've got this injector page which lets me like manually enter a token. And yeah, don't really need to see that. That's not that important. So then like, I'm authenticated inside of the Weweb editor. So if you're using Metamask in Weweb, that's the way to like do it. Yeah, if you're using Metamask in Weweb. So if we take a look at the flows, let's go back to the pages. There we go. So collections, there's 2 collections. We've got minted NFTs and we've got my NFTs. So the
Earned users NFT. I mean, the user who is logged in, I guess.
yes, the my NFTs is so that one is displayed here. So that's how these ones, that's how this drop down is populated, or like that's the data it's bound to. And then the collection at the top is the minted NFTs. So this just calls an Alfie endpoint. I'll show you that quickly because it's super simple. So this is
maybe
minted.
we're gonna talk about Alfie because we mentioned it, but we didn't explain, and that's your tool basically. So yeah, if you want to just explain what this does, feel free.
Okay, so Alfie's a no-code backend, but really it's a no-code middleware. So we don't offer a database, and I never plan on offering a database. Like, that's why I'm a fan of Base Row. We just want to solve the logic layer. So like all sorts of things, like fetching data, caching data, integrating authentication systems like member stack and outsetter, so you can actually create secure flows with other no-code tools. As we look at some of the other flows, you'll see we've got, let me just, I'm in development now, so I can break this. We've got multi-environment, so you've got development and production. You don't have to like break production when you're doing changes. But we've got all sorts of things like HTTP request, logic, flatten data. It's really for when you need to transform data. Say you're calling Airtable from Weweb, but you want to join data and then return it, or filter what's actually returned. And yeah, we'll dive into it more.
It reminded me of, like, maybe I'm mistaken, but a bit of Integromat, but with more like web capabilities and developer capabilities, like handling cookies, like GWT, everything you mentioned. But like, is it the mindset or?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, actually. We're not an automation tool. So like Zapier and Make, although Make can be used as like an alternative, those 2 tools are primarily automation. So when something happens that you're not in control of, so like when a Stripe payment happens, do this. Or like when, I don't know, when someone joins my Slack group, do this. You don't have control of the Slack server or the Stripe server. So that's when you use webhooks. Alfie really shines when it's users triggering events. So when a user clicks this, do this. You can use it for webhooks, but like, as you'll see, we used it for the Web3 one, but like most of our users come to integrate authentication systems and things like that.
Okay. No, that's pretty cool. I've seen that the lifetime deal is ending soon, so if you people wanna try Joel's tool, now's the time.
Yeah, I got advice, because I'm not a marketer, but I got advised it was devaluing the product. So Yeah, got to listen to your peers, haven't you, when they give you advice on things you're not good at. So just to show quickly, and then we'll dive straight back into Weweb. If I reload the page and then go into Alfie, you can see we've got the green execution flow. So this is a get request. We call base row. It's got like the table ID, and then we're filtering where the owner is not empty, because we only want the NFTs that have been minted that don't have an owner. And you can enable caching. So we've got the results here. So
wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then just like Weweb, we try not to be what's the word? Opinionated. So like we want to let the developers do what they want to do. So like you have to handle erroring. So like you can check here, like if nodes.filterednfts.meta.status code is 200, then you can like do this or that. Like we try not to be opinionated or like force you to do things. And then you can drill into the results, because that's what we need. And then you can like just select which data you want returned, because the last thing you want to do is say you've got notes on a row and you don't want the customer to see them if they're about them. And then return JSON response.
That's cool.
I think we might, if we got time, we might dive in on the socket IO one, because that one's really quite interesting.
Sure.
But for now, that's this flow. So there's no authentication on this one, because this is, we want people to see the NFTs that have been minted.
Public.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no filtering. The other endpoint is my NFTs. Again, it's another Alfie one. And if I click the edit here, you can see we're passing authorization. I'm not going to
show the token.
You'll see my token. But yeah, we pass the token in the request, and then Weweb does its magic and stores it in the store. So they're the only two collections.
You're right, not showing the token, because I can't say how many times I had to reset tokens after a live. And you don't want to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the problem with live streaming, isn't it? Like sometimes you just get in the flow and then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and always forgetting that those are like live tokens. I'm like, oh crap.
That's a good idea though for a feature
obfuscating
request.
Tokens in like Zoom or like Restream. I mean, all these tools, they should do it, but that's another discussion.
So next, after collections, you got workflows, but I think the variables should come to be explained first. So you can put them in folders, which is awesome. And then you've also got variables from components. And then you've got like the authentication ones. Oh, let's touch on that first, on the plugins. So the only plugin really is token-based auth. So this in Weweb allows you to use your own, as we're using Alfie for authentication with our own tokens, you can do that. So if you've got if you're working with an enterprise customer and they've got their own authentication system, you can use that with Weweb. And it's really easy to set up. You can see there's pretty much just the endpoint and the type. So yeah, let's jump back into the variables. So what I chose to do to keep this no code philosophy for the hackathon is I stored all of the variables in Weweb. So like the contract instance, which is just an empty object to start with. You've got the ABI. So this is or maybe we can share that in the chat. I don't think I sent you this link, but remix.ethereum.org. I'll put it in the private chat.
Remix.ethereum.org.
It's what I use to create the smart contract and then deploy it. So they've got templates. Again, we maybe touch on that if we've got time, but you need the ABI, and that's the I forget the acronym. Not a Web3 developer, but it's the interface, so that then how you interact with the contract, what functions are available and things like that. Application binary interface, maybe. So I stored that in here just, to make full use of the Weweb variables. And then the contract address, added that in here and stuck them in a folder. So everything in here is for the smart contract. And then for the Web3, we've got the address, which will be the user's address, and the message. The message is when we logged in, the like, hey, please sign this message. That's where that'll be stored. And then in the app, we've got the selected NFT, which is this drop down. So which one is currently chosen? And that is an object. Oh no, sorry, that's an ID. It's been 2 months ago I built this, so it's I might get a couple of things wrong. I think I chose to. I've got an array of the NFTs, and then we do like a lookup inside of it by the ID to get it out.
Okay.
I think it's like maintain reactivity, so that I can always refer to that list as like a source of truth.
Okay.
It's generating, which is just a Boolean, like for the loaders and things like that. And then socket IO, I've got the configuration. So we just initialize like the auth, which is just a null token to start with, and then we populate that, obviously. We've got the path. This is the Alfie endpoint for when for the specific workflow that I used. In the query parameters, we send a prompt, and in the transport layer or the transport protocols is just WebSockets. So socket IO supports like polling, like fake WebSockets kind of thing, but I didn't want to use that. I wanted to use proper WebSockets.
Cool.
And then in the UI, we've got the modal.
And so again, sorry, I might say, because I know lots of people are asking for Socket.io. It's coming to Weweb, but it's no easy task for us to do the products part, like the UI and how to set up this, but it's coming. And we have a POC that's coming also with Supabase, I think, where with one of our clients, we made a real-time chat actually in Weweb. It's reactive, so it's really cool.
Oh, that's going to be exciting. Yeah, so WebSockets is something missing in no code at the moment. So yeah, I can't wait for that. Like, and to have it
actually,
native.
It's really cool. But actually, product-wise, because I'm working with this with our CPO, it's really hard because it's not the same way you would do like collections and stuff. So we need to find a way to present this, like get the UX right. It's a big task, basically.
Lots of moving parts. It's very dynamic. Like there's no this or that like API calls. It's
exactly.
Users can define pretty much whatever they want in terms of like events and things. And then the UI. So in Weweb, if you're not familiar, there's loads of built-in components, and like for the modal, I don't have loads of modals. So you saw we had several instances of a modal. It's all the same modal. And I've got this object where I store like the title, whether it has a loader, whether it's displayed or not displayed, the description, whether it should have the login button inside of the modal, and whether it should have the try again button in the event of an error. So there's probably better ways to structure this, but I just liked the fact that my UI wasn't complicated. My data was.
We actually use a similar approach for the alert system.
Yes, that's what I kind of copied. So the alert here, you've got like even more. So you've got like an icon, like but for anyone who doesn't, an icon, title, CTA, description, colors. Like you can bind anything. Pretty much.
And basically it would become like internal variables because we're working on the new components. If you're familiar with React or Vue, you're creating components that you then reuse and passing props to them. And basically you would be able to like design, set internal variable props and workflows. So basically methods in your components, all in the tool. No need to like code anymore. So that's what we are working on right now.
Yeah, I saw the stream where that was shown, and if you've got a link, I highly recommend anyone developers looking to build like components for Weweb, like check out that stream. Like the future's bright. It's very bright.
You mean the one where we show how to build a component now with Vue.js, or the live where we previewed what future components will look like?
Both are worth watching. I can't remember which one exactly, because there's one that you did, and then there's one, forgive me, I've forgotten her name, that the developer.
Aurélie, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, they're both good, both exciting. And then the last one is the navigation. I won't really touch on this because this will probably be the first thing you do when you jump into Weweb. But like you can whether the display the profile or like a mobile menu. But looking at time, I think that's everything in terms of the variables. So if anyone's got any questions before I move on to the workflows, feel free to comment in the chat. Or if you guys have got any questions or any improvements that I could do on structuring, that'd be great.
I had a question about the socket.io variable, but I think you're probably going to explain it in a second, because I was wondering like if you just like trigger it through workflow or something, like if it's
Yeah, so I try to do everything in like the workflows or variables.
yeah.
And actually, yeah, that's a really good point. Before we dive into workflows, let me just show you what custom code there is. So we load the Ethers JS library. I'm not sure, where did I load the socket.io library?
Maybe on page load? No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not. Can't remember where I put the actual library now. It should be here, shouldn't it? It's working though, so I've put it somewhere. we might.
The thing is, if you put this here, it doesn't work in the editor because this code is added on the published app.
Maybe that was why. Oh, so if I add these, can I actually execute this library inside of Weweb, inside of the editor?
Right now, no, if you're using it that way, because
I mean,
it's added to the HTML of the page when we publish the page,
So if I wanted to, because when I was doing this, I had to like publish to test. So where would be like the place to put it? So I know. And
actually, you would do a plugin, and the API is not ready yet, so we would enable people to create plugins, because basically when we create plugins like our date plugin, it's basically adding date.js, to your app and all kind of things. Like Supabase, we had the Supabase CLI, same for other like Xano and stuff. So you would need to add a plugin, because we can't just integrate with NPM like developers asked and like use any library, because that would like maybe collide with other things in Weweb. So basically in like the near future, you would create your own plugin on the marketplace and release it, and it would add this to the project. And also you can like add components thanks to this that use also this library and other things. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, cool. I look forward to that, because it would be very dangerous, I guess, if you let people just add JavaScript and then execute it in your editor
exactly
with your authentication token.
Even just CSS, and they're like, yeah, everything's changing. So yeah.
So a little tip as well. The reason I've done like added it to the window variable is that I was having some bugs with Ethers.js when I didn't do it this way. So that's why, like, usually you wouldn't do this, but sometimes you got to make some compromises to get it to work. And this was one of the things. And as it was a hackathon, I didn't want to spend too long like figuring out why. I spent a while on it. And then, so basically we just have a global variable called provider, and this will be the Ethereum provider. And then we've got a global variable called socket.io, which initializes to null. And now for the fun part. If we go to the workflows, we've got the modal. I won't touch on these for now. We can always come back if people have got questions. Socket.io, Web3, alert. We won't touch that one. Testing, that was just an endpoint I can use to like manually pass a token in. So in the editor, I'm actually logged in. That's the form in that extra page uses that workflow. And then we've got the smart contract. So we'll start with the login, and then socket.io, and then maybe minting, if that sounds good. Cool.
Sure.
So
spoiler alert, it's when I looked at Joel's workflows that I thought to myself, better invite him on a live stream. There's no way I'll be able to explain this.
Yeah, it's you make it like a bit easier though, like being able to name them and copy them and change them. Like that's like I really like that. So what this flow does is the first thing it does is it checks like, are you authenticated? We do show and hide the button, but it's always good to check. So if they are authenticated, then we just show a modal like you are already logged in. Like to switch account, please first log out, because most like cryptocurrency people have more than one wallet, so like it's quite a valid thing to log in and log out. And that's all that happens if you are logged in. If you aren't logged in, this is where we go into the login flow that I mentioned at the beginning. So the first thing we do is we execute another flow. So I've made this really modular, so my flows aren't, although they are complicated, they're not like just one big flow. Just like in code, you wouldn't have all of your code in one page. You like spread it out and
that's
then import.
what I was about to say. That's where we see that you're a developer, because you use global workflows and you don't want to repeat code or like no code. So
yeah, keep it as dry as possible.
Dry, yeah.
Do not repeat yourself. So I'll tell you what, here's a little feature request. I'd love a shortcut to jump between my workflows. Like, unless there is a way, I'm just not aware. Like if I could go from here
to the global one.
Yeah, like to drill into it.
Okay.
That would be so cool.
I'm adding this to my like tool to do. Yep.
That's a really good point, actually.
So I'm gonna go to where is it? Oh, it's probably
It's in Web3. You were on it. Connect wallet.
Oh yes, sorry. The description is not the set. Yes, it was a hackathon. My naming isn't the best. So even though it says its own workflow, it's just using the JavaScript block. So within a workflow, you can just execute JavaScript. So like coming back to the example of like viewing them as files, it's just like a way to order them. If you're a developer, you may be thinking, it seems a bit strange, but it's the easiest way I found to manage them. And then what this does is it calls the provider, so the one we set in the global code, and then we send a request, like send instructions to get all of the accounts, and then we update the variable. So this variable, if we go to here, would have been. It's going to be a bit of a challenge jumping around.
You can search them at the top.
Oh, I can search them. So
yeah, but maybe it's too small. No, like the search is even higher.
Oh, even higher. Oh, yes, good point. So I've just lost my train of thought. So the address, there we go. Yeah, so this one here, the first one, we're setting this. We're setting this
But
variable.
I think you can also see it in the variables, like right under your JavaScript code.
Yes, that's it. Oh, whoops. Yes, that's a better idea. Cool. So what we do is update the address. So we're updating this value with the first one in the list. Again, it was a hackathon. If it was a real client paying me to do this, I'd had some checks beforehand. But myself and you guys were the only people who were going to use it. And then we just console.log the address, just because again, it was a hackathon and we were moving quickly.
And if people are wondering why like the address variable is not called address, but like variables and with a big ID, is because it's the internal value of this variable, and that's how we store variable internally. So that's how they appear if you use JavaScript, basically.
And it's important because then you can change the name of the variable and it doesn't impact your...
Yeah.
And it's worth noting as well, like you do make it easier. So let's say if we add it, oh no, maybe not for variables. That could be another feature request. So when you do functions, it adds like a little comment that has the name of it. Maybe for variables, that'd be cool to have like the name of it above.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be quite cool. Yeah, so that's that workflow. So let's go back to login. So at this point we've got the address. The next one is to get the message. This executes another flow. This one is called get message. So let's go to get message. And this one makes an API call to Alfie. and the flow it calls is Metamask get message. So in Weweb, we can see we pass one parameter, which is the address, and it's orange because we are using the parameters in our flow. So in the previous block, so if we just go back, I'm probably not doing it justice here explaining it, but we're passing the address we got in this block into this, like we're accessing it within this block and using that in the request. So inside of Alfie, we have address configured as an inbound parameter in the body, because this is a post request. It's required and it's a string. We handle all casting and things like that as well, which is quite cool.
Nice.
Or just enforcing types as well. And then we use base row. And then what we do
That's cool,
is
by the way, because I've got the impression that most errors in no code, they are because of like type errors between APIs or like fields errors, you know. Like we've got a lot of people that are struggling with this, and the way also in Weweb you've got like the two string also formulas, and if you have this kind of errors because some backend they don't accept like for example they need the ID as a number and not as text, you have to use these formulas. But if you use like doing this in Alfie also, it's really cool.
That was kind of, that's like in my eyes one of our really real USPs. It's hard to market though. But like hopefully as more people use it, then people will see like that's it does speed up development. And we've got these expressions, so I'm not going to get into this too much, but like you can pretty much reference anything, and you can even do logic in here, although I don't want to touch on that right now. For like inline functions and things like that. So we're doing a filter. We're filtering this table, which is our users table, which is this one. And we're filtering by the address, which is like our primary field. Whoopsie daisy. Where it equals the address passed in the body. So maybe, I'll tell you what would be really useful. Let's go to production. Let's go back into our app. Let's log out. Let's log back in. Again, it's slower. When you've got a flow open in Alfie, it is slower because we have to slow it down so we can update the UI. Yes, that's a thing to note. There we go. So we're logged in. So if we come back, fingers crossed, there we go. So now we can actually see the data. So we can see base row returned one record. We've got the results, and that is our record. So what we want to do next is check the status was 200. But additionally, we want to check that, again, here's an example of like an inline expression. The results has a length greater than 0. And that's how we can then, if it doesn't, we can return an error saying, hey, you don't have an account, like log in or register. And then we get the user. So like set data set is kind of like each step returns a data set, and set data set lets you create a new one. So we're building one by getting the first item, and we know there will always be one because we perform that check in the logic node. And then in here now, we've just got, instead of like all of the metadata they had, like the results and count and things like that, we just got the user we want. So then once we've got the user, we perform an update, and this is another really cool thing. I am saying myself, but you can't edit production, but if you press backspace on an input field, it converts it to null. Like that's a real challenge in things like Zapier, like to pass null. So, and also which fields to include. So in this instance, all we're doing is updating the nonce, and we're just using this expression to generate a new one. And then we've got a logic node. And what does this do? Checks that request was successful. If it was, we return a JSON response. And this, we're doing get message. So if we expand this is the same message in the login one, but we're using the nonce that we just created. If that makes sense. So this is what gets returned to Weweb and then like shown in the pop-up.
Cool.
So that's getting the message. Then we show a modal. So again, this is kind of how we were showing those modals and hiding them. And again, when I showed you the variables, this is like the awesome UI in Weweb. So when we call this flow, you can just like select the drop down. I want to display it. This is my title. This is my description. I want the loader to be there, etc. And then
You're updating that variable.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that workflow does. Sorry. Yeah. Exactly.
And those are the parameters of stuff.
Yeah. My mistake there. That's we're updating. Yeah. It's another workflow that then updates those values to display the modal. We then execute another flow, which is sign
We've got
message.
people coming from code, basically workflows. They're just big functions, and you're like changing the arguments. So that's what you do here.
And how are we on time? Because I've just noticed it's 6 minutes left.
Just go for it. Don't worry about time.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next one is signing the message. Again, there'll be an error because like I can't execute this flow in Weweb because we need Metamask. Yeah. So this flow sign message, if we go to that one, again, it's got custom JavaScript. And this is where to sign a message, you need the private key, as I mentioned earlier. So we let Metamask handle that. So we call window.provider.getSigner. You can, if you've got a link to the docs, and you can maybe, I think you shared the Ether docs, didn't you? So you can check those docs out and learn more about this. And then we call sign message, and this returns the signature. So now we have our signature, and then we return this value so we can access it in the flow that called this flow. So let's go back to login. So where are we? We signed our message, signed the message, displayed verifying user, and then we call get JWT. So this calls another workflow, which is called exchange signature for JWT. So if we go, let's go to that flow. And again, this is another post request. It calls Alfie again, passing two parameters. So we pass the address, which is the address we got from that first workflow we executed in the parent flow, and the signature, which is the one we just generated. And just to show you here, these are the parameters. So you configure them here in Weweb. Mm-hmm. So if we jump to that flow, because it's quite an important one. Which one was it? This one. This is like a
This is a big one.
Yeah, I probably won't. I'll run it and talk through. I won't open up each block, and maybe just the Ethereum one. So obviously I want to be respectful of people's time. So let's log out and log in again. And maybe me logging out and logging in again, maybe just emphasize, like, help explain it each time, because then you're seeing like this is the message that we returned when we got the message.
Yeah. Okay.
We've got the nonce, and then we sign. These are the modals that are being shown and within this flow. And then if we come back, so I'll just show you the parameters. So we had address and signature. So we passed those in. These are both strings. We get the user. We perform the same check as last time. We create a new data set of just the user. We check if the user has a nonce. So if they don't, then they shouldn't be able to log in. Like they've broken their flow somehow. They've done something wrong. So we throw an error. And this is the magic Ethereum one. So we pass this node our address. We pass it the message, which is the same as last time, but rather than generating a new, I'm going to call this unique number instead of keep saying that other word. We generate a new number. We don't generate a new number. We get the number from the user record in base row. So does that kind of make sense? When the first part in the flow, we generate it, save it to base row. And then after it's, like when we go to exchange it, we get that one. And then like build this message. And then we also pass the signature. And then Alfie does its magic.
So you can rematch the user. Like you can rematch the wallet to the user, basically.
Yeah, we can basically ensure that the signature was from the address that
Okay.
that is making the request. We update.
Sorry, just a couple of steps before the set dataset. I'm not sure I understood. Like you're basically so the now below the set dataset, user record. So that's like based on the user who is trying to log in.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
create the list of NFTs, or but I don't understand why you would check the nonce afterwards.
So we need to get the nonce that's in base row for the user.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So at this point, so up until this point, you're not authorized. Like, but the flow would execute at this point, if that kind of makes sense. So we need to get the user's object in order to have their nonce to include it in the message to verify it.
Yeah. Got it.
Let me. I'm not like explaining these bits. I'm a bit quick. So let me know. Like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, no worries. But to be sure that the people were like the user was not impersonated by someone else when you're asking for the request. Am I right?
Yes. So this is where the authentication, this is where the authentication happens, the verification. But in order to do this, we need to have the same message that was signed by Metamask. So that's kind of the bit I was missing. So Metamask,
and that message is stored in the
I've hard coded it here, but just the nonce is stored.
Yeah.
So this matches the other one. Again, if it wasn't a hackathon, I might have spent stored the message in base row, but I wanted to just store the unique value. And then the next step is, if we go down, we reset. So all of these other fields are ignored, but we want to like reset the nonce. So like it's been used, we verified it, we just clear it out now. Like it should never be able to be used again. And then we check if that request was successful, and then we filter the user. Like all we want is the ID, address, and display name. We don't care about their NFTs. We don't care about the order or anything like that. And then this is another like important one, encoding the JWT. So now we have our user object. We know their address is theirs because we verified it. Then what we can do is encode a new JWT. So you have to have a secret key. If you want to know about that, just read our docs. You can just like generate a secret key and store it here. And they're all secured and encrypted using AES 256 GCM. And then you give it some values like the issuer, which is like, this can be anything. Like if you could verify a JWT from another service, but as this is one of our servers. So I'm saying this is the issuer, this is the audience. Again, this can be any string. I wasn't going to use the long staging domain. So I just did Weweb hackathon. It expires after 24 hours. And data for developers who are familiar with JWTs, this is really payload. So the data that's stored inside of the JWT. So you can store whatever you want, and this can help you really optimize your requests like in the future, because you're having data in the JWT. Obviously, only store data that can be public in there. And then we're passing our safe data into our encoded JWT. And then we're building a JSON object, so another set data set with, I should have said. So this returns an access token. It's not shown here, but in the metadata, there's an access token. So you can see here nodes.token.meta.token. And you've just seen my access token, so I broke my rule. But yeah, I can modify the audience later, and that will just invalidate them. And then we set property lets you add another property to a data set. So again, there's my access token. And we also add the user.
Please don't use it right now.
In there. No, yeah. And then this is the data that's returned to the front end. So this request returns the access token, but also just the user object like decoded. So then you don't have to like decode it in the client. So I think we're nearly at the end of this flow, and then we'll quickly touch on the WebSockets because some people probably came for that, and I haven't really touched on it. So we got the JWT, and then you use these great steps that are built into Weweb called store token. We pass it our access token, fetch user, which, am I correct in thinking when you call fetch user, that's what sets the is authenticated flag?
I think so, yeah. Like if you, yeah.
And then
Pretty sure, yeah.
that authenticated flag is, we use that in other flows. So we call that.
Yeah.
And also if this fails, then it returns like a 401. So it's like a, whenever you set your, store your
I'm not
token.
sure it returns a 401 actually. That's a good question. It just tries to fetch it does a get on the user to populate the user variable in Weweb, which is reserved. And if this variable is filled, you've got the is authenticated passing to true, because I think actually it's a watcher on the user object.
Yeah,
Hey guys, I'm really, really sorry, but I need to go because I have an emergency I need to handle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Really
you,
sorry
Joyce.
about
No worries.
awesome, Joel. I'm really sorry about this. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
That's fine. Thank you for
Bye, Joyce.
being here and inviting me. So yeah, Q, the reason it returns a 401, sorry, is because we're using the custom JWT integration, it's calling our like an alpha flow here to get the user. So that's why you're right. You don't return one by default, but if like as you let the developer call whatever endpoint they want, for example, this is the one that we call, like, and this returns returns a 500.
Yeah.
Oh no, this decode JWT would return a 401. Sorry, so it wouldn't have even got near here.
Okay.
And then we fetch the collection, like my NFTs, update the selected NFT. So this is just some JavaScript basically to get all the NFTs, figure out which one's the last NFT, and then set it to selected. So when you log in, your most recent one is already like populated.
I think this could be, I mean, I'm not criticizing or anything, but for people that want to use formulas, I think you could do this only using formulas, like using the length, then computing the -1 and getting, the last one.
That's
with the arrays formulas.
That's it. For some examples, I did. Yeah, I've got a form. Yeah, I did here.
Yeah, you've got some length.
I've got the length, but yeah, maybe I didn't do it all. Yeah, I could have tidied this up looking at it.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Play a success message. That's the login flow. Do you reckon there's time to go through the?
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
So this one's actually kind of a bit simpler, but again, this isn't something natively supported. When for anyone watching, when Weweb implement this, it'll be a lot better than the way I've done it. So the first thing is to remove all of the listeners. So a listener is like once a connection's established. Let's add some context. So a normal API, you make a request and then you get a response. WebSockets is you can make a request and then the server can send like broadcasts back,
messages. Yeah.
And the really cool thing is you can have like rooms, like as you mentioned, like with a chat room. So for example, if we both made a request and we were put in the same bucket, the server can then broadcast messages out.
Yeah, to the other people. Yeah.
Chats like a great example of that. And again, like as this isn't something natively supported and this hackathon was more for me just to explore Weweb, I chose to do it this way. You could probably optimize it. Once we've cleared all the listeners, we load the configuration. So this is the variable I showed earlier in the variables. We then set the NFT ID because we're going to be generating the artwork for the NFT. So we need to pass that in.
So the NFT ID is like the room you're listening to?
So the room is the workflow. So inside of, again, where WebSockets isn't a feature that's public, only Alfie like employees can use it, like me and my business partner. If we go to AI image generator, so unlike a normal flow where you return a JSON response, we start a background task because we want this on, like, we don't want this on the main thread. And then at the moment, the flow, so anyone who calls this flow and is authenticated will get broadcasts. So like that, like that's why the app isn't kind of public, the NFT generator one, because everyone would get a broadcast, like if someone else generates one right now. But we will have rooms or like a later date. But the workflow is kind of that at the moment.
Okay.
But we need the parameter in order to like update base row and update the record. We then pass we add the prompt also to the configuration, because we need the prompt when in order to tell Dale. And then we pass our token. So here we're getting the access token from, so here's one where you add comments. So you do it for some variables, like maybe the authentication ones.
I will have to check if we do this for all the variables. Maybe we missed the custom variables. I will check.
It's a really cool feature. I really liked that. So we set the auth token because, again, this is a secure flow. We don't want anyone to be able to generate anyone's artwork. You'd get a lot of complaints if your NFT changed. We create the connection. And again, if you want to learn more about this, anyone in the chat, check out the socket.io link that was shared earlier. And then we display the loader. So the main difference with this flow is the connection is established here, and then what we're really doing after is just registering for listeners. So these run after each other, but for example, if we look at on connect, we just log to the console. On disconnect, logs to the console. But on response,
and for people that don't know Socket.io, that's how you react to messages that are sent by the backend, by the server. Is that there's always a type, and maybe on this type of message you want to do something. So you register a callback, and that's basically what you're doing here. Yeah.
So exactly what Q just said. So here is we're saying socket.io.on. So on response, when it receives a message with response. So again, just to show you here. So here, I think. Event preview might be this one, complete somewhere in here. There we go. No, not that one.
I mean, that's the same logic. So
it's
just the type is changing, but yeah.
And what I've got a to do here. I've run out of time in the hackathon, but you like a tip is you can call Weweb workflows using JavaScript. So that is a way I could improve this rather than like manually updating these notifications for the modals. I could trigger the workflow that displays the modal. But
using did you use the Weweb? You know, like
I could do. Well, I reached out to support and they pointed me towards the Weweb.
Because that's normally a private API, but more and more people are asking for stuff related to this. So maybe we'll do a doc on this, because that's basically how Weweb under the hood launches workflows or like changes variables. And so we are like thinking on exposing it and also making it available in no code also.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, because that was like I was looking for it, and then when I reached out to support and they said, "Oh, you can do it," I was like, "Oh, awesome! There's nothing better than that." Like, so I look forward to seeing the docs for that. And I could definitely optimize this whole flow using that. And then we do like a similar thing. So on preview, so when it receives the preview event, we display the alert, get the selected NFT. Get the index of the NFT in the My NFTs collection. So as I said, we're always manipulating the collection rather than like having a selected object. We set the image, we get the current token count, we decrement the token count. So this number goes down. And then we update the token count. This is a hack I did, so it'd be good to get some insights on this. The reactivity wasn't working when I was manipulating. Maybe it was because it was a collection. So what I did was, where which one? The selected IDs. You know the number that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I set it to null. Maybe it's because it's a primitive, isn't it? So that's probably why.
Yeah, maybe because you're changing the collection directly, and I think we internally use a setter. I don't remember because I know to code, but I'm not a web dev. But I think it's because we're using Vuex, and you have to use like a setter or getter to like trigger reactivity.
Right.
So,
okay. That makes sense.
And maybe that's on this variable, but like on the whole collection is not.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anyone who runs into that, this is a workaround. It's a bit hacky, but you set it to null and then set it, and then that like just triggered all the reactivity. So then this like changes, and then
that was a really like awesome that you found this. Like it's really hackish. I love it.
It's a hackathon. We're allowed to hack, aren't we? And I was like, by this point, I was quite close to the end of the project. So I was like, I can't be stopped. And then we've got like on exception, like we display another modal and just like close the connection. And then the messages that were shown, like as the connection was happening, we just display an alert. So, and then the final thing is on complete, we display another alert. So you could really optimize these by triggering those workflows using the I can't say it, woo lib.
Yeah.
Totally have some merch that says like, well, it's just WW, isn't it? But it should say like woo underneath. It's
W, so cool. Yeah, but in French it's really long to say WW, so we say whoa.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And that's pretty much it. I think we've kind of gone through.
Oh, that's awesome.
Honestly, everything.
I don't know if people have questions. If like you are super clear or like they're totally lost, I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. It's like, yeah, if anyone's watching this after as well, just you can feel free to send me a message, and I can always create a loom if there's anything that wasn't like clear.
Do you have like social networks where people can reach you, like maybe Twitter? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So Twitter is 0. So the number 0 X JJW. And yeah, that's like the main social network I'm active on.
I send it to people. I found you back.
Awesome.
So yeah, feel free to reach out to Joel to ask him, because that was an awesome project. And also like the tool you created, alfie.dev, found it really, really cool. So if people wanna discover it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me on the stream as well. Like it's a pleasure.
Yeah, no worries. That was a pleasure. I mean, your project was awesome. So thank you for like being here, by the way. So yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, I've been a fan of the streams for a while. So yeah, really, really honored to be here.
Cool. I'm checking if some people still have questions or no. Seems quiet, but I think that's okay. So yeah, thank you, Joel, for like having been for this live. Basically, it was really cool to see your project. Awesome what you did, especially the hack at the end. I'm still surprised and impressed. And yeah, see you next week. I think next week we also have a live with someone. Let me check my calendar because obviously I forgot. So we've got a live stream with Chad, another user that he's done an app on Weweb. So awesome. Same place on Thursday, 6 p.m. Paris time. So I think it's 5 p.m. UTC. And anyway, we'll send you like reminders. And in the meantime, have a great week and a great weekend in advance. Bye, everybody.
You too. Thank you. Have a good week.